I'm going to introduce Vanessa while they're miking her up so I can give them the whole spiel because she is worth this long introduction. So this session is Business Financial Strategy in 5 Steps, led by Vanessa Duran. Beautiful name, by the way. She's the principal at DCC Accounting, and Vanessa has worked with over 100 new and established businesses, helping them grow from zero to multi-million-dollar revenue and net income. Net and gross are 2 very different things. It's the net that we're looking for. And Vanessa is a public speaker and has been featured in Forbes and lectured at entrepreneurial forums, including Raw Residency, PRSA, We All Grow Latina as well, among many, many others. And she's a business mentor and serves as treasurer at the Miami-Dade chapter SCORE, and also is We All Grow's business manager. So we're so, so excited to welcome her here. Vamos, amiga.
Hello. So, business finance, huh? So, there's a lot, so much to pack in that subject, and the majority is in mindset. So, I want to ask everyone, who here, when they get asked about their business finance, feels a little discomfort? Or a little, I'm not so sure. So the reason I'm here today is to change that even a little bit. That discomfort, because the way we get rid of that discomfort is by learning, just like the theme of many of the speakers and what we've been talking, asking for help. And knowing what you don't know, and rather than go into a place of lack, go into a place of abundance. Instead of saying, oh, my finances are a hot mess, oh, I don't know about this, before, you know that I've taken my business here, and now I'm going to do this. So thank you so much for sharing and raising your hand, because I know that just alone brings, it takes a lot from you to, be able to be honest and say, finances is not what, is my forte. So that's step 1. So thank you so much for taking that step of courage. So about me, I have been leading DCC Accounting for the last 13 years. I was in corporate America. I worked in New York for the markets and the public markets. So I decided to go into entrepreneurship and work with small business owners like yourselves because I saw a need, and just that the panelists were saying, in my community where people just felt very disempowered in their finances. And I saw that many people were bringing their business up to here, and their real potential was here. And that gap could have been filled with just a little bit of support, a little bit of information, a little bit of training, and mainly support, right? So that's how, and that's why I started DCC Accounting, to help entrepreneurs like yourself just shorten that gap. So next. So business financial strategy in 5 steps. A lot to pack in 5 steps, but it's going to, like I said, I've been doing this for 13 years, so I try to put everything together in 5 steps. So this is a boot camp, so you can walk out of here empowered and with some steps to follow. So next. Oh, that's a little bit more about me. So I'm an economist turned accountant. That's like a fun fact. I didn't go to school for accounting first. And then I ended up founding a company called DCC Accounting. My mom is an accountant, and I always said, I'm not gonna become an accountant. She had crazy hours, and I was like, nah, that's not for me. But yes, it was for me, because sometimes things are just, sometimes you just can't run away from your destiny, and I realized that. I am a mom of 2. I have a 13-year-old daughter and a 7-year-old boy. I'm very passionate about entrepreneurship. When I meet business owners like yourselves and like the panelists we had, and I see everything that we go through to bring our vision to life, that is my call for my purpose. To be able to empower those business owners to bring their vision to life, that is my purpose and what I call my zone of genius. And it took me, talking about imposter syndrome, it took me a few years to be able to own and say, that is what I do well. Be able to help you figure out your finances and helping you grow your businesses. And yeah, in the past 13 years, I've worked with many companies that have gone from zero to multi-million-dollar revenues, and that is by providing that financial support. Next. So the 5 steps, right? Everyone's like, okay, what are the 5 steps? So take a deep breath, because this is important information. And like I said before, last week I was talking to one of the entrepreneurs we support at DCC Accounting, and she came, she's a brand new client. She came to the meeting very apologetic. I'm so sorry, Vanessa. I haven't done this. Like I should have done this 3 years ago. My finances are a hot mess. I actually highlighted that. And, don't judge me. And I'm like, no judge zone here. We're here to grow. So if any of you have thought that my finances are not this, there's a lot of things, that people tell you what to do. You know what I'm doing now? I'm doing the not to do. I read a quote that I loved that was, tell me where I'm gonna die so I don't go there. Actually, it is the quote that leads Warren Buffett's operations. He says, I have made the money that I have made not by knowing how to make money, but try not to lose it. So there's so many ways that we can say what we want to do, and sometimes it's easy to make a list of the not to do's. So that's one of the ones that I'm going to say not to do when you're oh, my business finances are this, are a hot mess, I don't know anything about this. Let's just stop doing that. I think that you can change that, because we want to come up with things that we change. So we can say something like, I am, reaching out for help. I started reaching out for help in my finances. Now, I'm learning about my finances. So that is a good way from moving from I don't, to I am doing, right? So that says that. So these 5 things. Now that we are in that mindset of I do, I have, and that's like an abundant mindset, we go into the meat of the talk. All right, so we're ready? Okay, awesome. So margins, that's number 1 of the 5 steps. We need to make sure that we're selling our products and services to make a profit. And it sounds easier than it actually is in practice. So right now, many of you, we have faced social and inflationary time after the pandemic, and there's many people that keep doing business the same way they did business prior to the pandemic. So, we shouldn't be doing that. We need to make sure that we have updated our business model, the way we make business, por donde le entra el agua al coco. We need to be sure of that because many things have changed. And what the experience, I'm going to share a little bit of the experience that I've had with entrepreneurs that I work with, is that sometimes they don't feel empowered to raise prices, to change pricing. And part of what we do also is the coaching. They're like, Vanessa, no, I can't. And I'm like, so then what can you? Sell it, give it away? Because essentially that's what you're doing, So that is margins. So margins, how do we know we are selling our products or services at a profit? You need to make sure that you are being clinical and listing every factor of production. What is a factor of production? Everything that goes into creating a product or your service. So if you're selling pencils, and the pencils you're buying from China, it goes the cost of the pencil, freight, storage, packaging, everything that goes into selling that product. So if you're selling the pencil for $1 and it costs you 10 cents and 10 cents of freight and 10 cents of storage, all of a sudden it's a total of 30 cents. That's 30% of the $1 they're selling it for. You need to be very sure about your margins. And this is something that, again, it sounds easy. Oh, I add up everything that it costs to make it, or everything that it costs to supply it, and then divide it by what my selling price. But there's so many hidden costs. There's so many hidden costs. And that's why we're going to move on to the other ones. That's actually in the tracking and bookkeeping, the third step. Okay? So, again, margins, making sure that you're selling at a profit. And you need to be the guardian of your business. Everything, every little thread, botón, the label, everything adds up. Okay? So then budgets. So that's what goes into producing and selling your service. Then it comes to budget. Budget is everything that you have to pay regardless of that you sell anything. So even if you have $0 in sales, you have a fixed budget. That's your rent, your utilities, payroll, all of that. We need to know all of that and have that in mind all the time, because that's what you have to pay, but you've committed to pay regardless of anything. So let's say if you have a $10,000 fixed budget, you start day one of your month already, you need to come out for that. So knowing exactly. So if we go back to the pencil example, right? And we have a pencil that, costs 10 cents, freight 10 cents, storage 10 cents, and I sell it for $1, I'm left with 70 cents, right? So then we need to say how many of those pencils I need to sell to cover for my fixed budget, And that is so important. And I always want to say for each one of the steps, this is the most important. They're all important, and that's why I tried to summarize it in 5. But it's so important. I started, when I started my business, and I see when my clients start their business, when we find out this equation of the first two, and they know exactly how many pencils they need to sell to cover their budget, you get off your bed and you know exactly, because then if I need to sell X in a month, you immediately know how many you have to sell per week and per day. And my client tells me, okay, I have a client that makes candles, and then she tells me, every time since we figured that out, if I know I'm a little behind in my minimum sales that I need to do to cover the budget, I'm creating a pop-up, I'm making a social campaign, like sharing, to make sure, and we all know, because if anybody has product business here, I know that when at the beginning we asked that question, there's many products, if you post, you sell. So you start posting, and then you bridge the gap of your sales that you're missing. So that's why those numbers are so important, because when you don't know where you're going, you don't know where you're going, but when you know where you're going, that's half the battle. Because then you're like, and then somebody calls you and they're like, oh, te estoy llamando because I want to buy 100, and then you know that you need to sell 200. Oh, and then you're like, and then you start sweetening the deal until you close at 200. But what makes that decision, what makes you do that is knowing. Because when you don't know, comfort, So we have to avoid that comfort. We have to make ourselves a little uncomfortable so we can reach our goals. Good. Okay, so far so good? Everyone following? Okay, great. Okay, and here comes the fun part. So we figured everything out. We know how much our product costs, our service costs, and I'm gonna go back a little bit after that, depending how we're doing on time, to give some tricks on how to do it for service, because service is complicated, a little bit more complicated, yeah. So I'm gonna try to move forward with this, and then I'm gonna, because product, the pencil example is easy, right? But we're gonna go into service, I promise. So tracking and bookkeeping. This one is one that gets very, very, very overlooked. And I'm gonna give you a little story of why how this is the accounting started. So it was the financial crisis of 2008. I was working for a broker-dealer in New York, and I was 27 years old, and I was gonna have a baby. My husband was also in finance, and well, things were not good. So I quit and I said, well, I'm just gonna focus on this baby. That's what I did. That was 2008. And 2009. 2008. My daughter was born in 2009. So I'm strolling my baby and I met a friend. I moved to Miami from New York. And I was strolling, minding my own business. And I see a friend and my friend is all like, estresada. And I'm like, ¿Qué te pasó? What's going on? She's like, oh, my accountant is calling me. She needs my financials. And I'm like, well, you don't have them? She's like, no. And I'm thinking, and then all of a sudden I'm thinking that they're like, that was about March, because I remember my daughter, she was like 8 months. And I'm like, I'm thinking there's like for February. She's like, no, that was last year's. I'm like, what? How do you run a business without knowing? So I'm like, I'll see you tomorrow. My daughter naps at 10, so come to my house and I'll help you get them done, no worries. So after that, she was like, wow, where have you been? And then DCC accounting started. Then I the next day I had 10 clients. Yeah. So that's a little bit of our inception story right there. But that's the most important because in that day, she had an online boutique for baby stuff. Like mobiles and clothes and, all of like newborn stuff. It was called Luna Lunera. It was the cutest thing. So, and when we were doing the thing, I was like, but you're losing money, girlfriend. And she was convinced that she was selling at a profit. She's like, no, pero es que look, I buy it at $5 and I sell it at 10, imagínate. And I'm like, pero, only transaction costs, like when you sell it through Shopify, through this, all of a sudden, it was like, no, you were losing $2 a piece of things. So that's why bookkeeping is so important, because sometimes tú te haces una idea and you're like soñando. And then the reality is completely different. And unless you take your time to track and look at it, that's actually the reporting cadence, that's the number 4. Unless you take your time to actually do bookkeeping, because, I don't know, I want to know here who has QuickBooks Zero or some sort of something. Okay, there's a few. Whose is up to date? I knew it! How do I know this? I've been in business for 20 years. So. I love the laughs. Bueno, if you take something home, let's look at it. And the reason you don't look at it is not because there's no time. The reason you don't look at it is not because there's no time. The reason you don't look at it is because there's something there. There's a break. There's a gap. And I know you get stressed out because you know that there's things there that you don't want to know. There's things there that want to say, look, I love my business. I love the idea of being an entrepreneur, but probably if I look very close to my business, I should close it out. But you shouldn't really. You should just make decisions to sell at a higher price, to cut some costs, So, and there's sometimes that we're enamored with certain ideas. My friend, she was enamored with the ideas of some sort of daydreamer, dream catcher. No, those were no. She was, no, and there was an amigas actually also that I helped with her margins, and she loved socks. She had books and socks, and she's like, oh, the socks. And I'm like, you're losing money on the socks. So, so that's what bookkeeping does, right? It helps you look at the hard facts so you can make decisions and actually making money, right? So, and then reporting cadence. Okay, so after QuickBooks is up to date, and I continue hearing the giggles, I love it. After QuickBooks is up to date is looking at your P&L, looking at your balance sheet. Those are the three minimums, the 2 minimum. I love cash flow because with cash flow is how you know, how you're again, I love this saying, my grandma used to say, por donde le entra el agua al coco, because really, por donde le entra el agua al coco. That's how, the cash flow, but it's okay. Profit and loss and balance sheet it's a good way to start and to get into that habit. It's a habit. We need to know that we are cultivating, as business owners, cultivating a habit. So again, if you take something home today, it's like, this is who I am today, and I'm going to start doing a few things so I'm here. Now I'm a business owner that looks at reports. You know, I'm a CEO. I'm like, you know, you become, and you can say that, and the things that are preventing you to do that is, you know, you're small. So the day you stop thinking you're small is the day you're like, no, my reports are important. And you know, I don't, now most of the new clients I get are women, but when I started working, most of the clients that I got were, you know, just male-owned businesses. And if they didn't have the reports by the 15th, they were calling me. Girls never call me for their reports. And I'm always like, we need to meet to look at your reports. Because that's, you know, it's important to get that feedback from the business. So how does that look for a solopreneur or for a small team? If you have a team, it's great because you can have that, you know, you have the accountability, company. But for a solopreneur, what does that look like? And I did it because at the beginning, I was just doing that for 10 clients and myself, right? So how does that look like? It's setting up an appointment in your calendar. No, actually no. The way that it works is the second Monday, or you know, whatever day works. When you say the second Monday, the last Friday, the third Friday, just like Thanksgiving, the third Friday, you know, the third Friday, the second Friday, you know, like when you have it like that, it's harder to skip it. So that's the reporting cadence. Look at it. So if you say, no, I know I have to sell $10,000, just look at it. And you will see how things change within you. That's what I was saying before, the mindset. You start moving from having the mindset of, soy chiquito, we're growing this thing. You know, soy una empresaria, que miro reportes. You know, you see how different that sounds? And it doesn't matter if you're selling 1,000, 10,000, 100,000, a million. It doesn't. But it starts with that. It starts with you changing, because that mindset is the fertilizer. And we say this phrase in my business all the time, like the analysts that work with the business owners. We always say, your mindset is the fertilizer that will help grow your business. So start with that. So start thinking, soy una empresaria, right? It's like, look in the mirror and say, soy una empresaria, I'm a businesswoman, and I focus on reports. I see, you know, what I'm selling. So that's the reporting cadence. It's very important. So if you have a small team or a solo owner, just los viernes, you know, last Friday of the month or the third Friday of the month, I'm looking at my reports, pour yourself a glass of wine. You know, it doesn't have to be like a boardroom meeting. It can be fun. You know, I'm gonna look at these things and so from looking at the reports, you're gonna see indicators. So from looking at reports, usually you get so many ideas and you're jotting down, no, lunes llamo no sé quién. You know, Monday I'm gonna call this guy to like ask him to, you know, maybe he can lower the prices. Or I'm going to change his price, or I'm going to run this campaign, things start flowing within you when you start looking at this. And I was talking to Anna about this, and you know, financials and financial reporting becomes a form of manifesting. Because you're like, ay, mira, se vendieron 10,000, I sold 10,000, how do I go to 12,000 to 15,000? But if you're not looking at it, you're not making those internal decisions. You're not making those calls to your vendors. You're not making those campaigns, right? So that's what's important, the reporting cadence. And then the last one, it's my favorite, again, they're all very important, is key performance indicators, KPIs. I love it, it's like a buzzword, everyone loves it. But it's actually very important. But key performance indicators are, you know, again, if you've looked at a P&L in QuickBooks or a balance sheet, it's overwhelming. You're like, what am I even looking at, right? Like if you are not trained to look at it every day. So I always recommend business owners when you're starting, launching, growing, or doing anything different, which is all of you Monday, to pick a few North Star metrics. And I like to call them North Star because they become your North Star. Right, so 3 things, 5 things, but my favorite is 3, it's easy. 3 things, 1, 2, 3, uno, dos, tres, that you want to track in your business. And that can be number of subscribers, orders per day, orders per week. It's very important. But you put so much energy on those numbers that it becomes self-fulfilling. So it's very important. And it's beautiful now if you have QuickBooks or any of the other, I saw that many people have QuickBooks, it gives you the ability to have dashboards, and you can customize the dashboards. So you are able to track these things, and those are the things that you're gonna be looking in your reporting day, wherever that day is. So next. So here, what we was talking about, so the finished products, freight, storage, raw materials, those are all the things that you need to be listing to come up with what your margin is, and then you can know, this is basically what is the goal that you know, my business, it's 30% growth, cost margin. So basically just the same pencil story, and you know this by heart, right? Next. The budgets, it's the fixed costs, so we talk rent, administrative salaries, office expenses such as supplies, subscriptions, and professional fees. So anything that doesn't change with sales. Sales, everything else is variable, so let's say Shopify fees, they change, the more you sell, the more they charge you. Credit cards, the same, credit card fees, the cost itself. Next. Tracking and bookkeeping. So this one, I saw that a few people had QuickBooks, but it's not necessary. You can do it in whatever system that works. So if you are still starting out and do not have the resources to pay for QuickBooks every month, or zero, or zero is a little cheaper, just whatever system works, but making sure that you're tracking. I know now some banks, like the online banking, have very detailed reporting. Ellos ya te organizan las transacciones. Like you get the transactions already organized by categories. So that's another idea if you do not have the resources of investing in an accounting software. So, and like I said, the importance of bookkeeping is here, having the financial information to provide the feedback that you need to make the decisions. And ask for help, just don't forget about it and neglect it. Right, next. Reporting and meeting rhythm, just creating a habit. That's what, I knew this, but I just forgot to say next. So we had said about a habit, it's a habit, right? So what are we doing? Just from becoming, financial, like a businesswoman that doesn't do it, now I'm a businesswoman that does it. And it starts with your idea, starts with your perception of yourself, that habit. So meeting rhythm, it's all, so you're an empresaria, I'm a businesswoman that looks at reports every third Friday of the month with a glass of wine. Whatever, I mean, you can create your own narrative, but it could be that, right? Next. Meeting rhythm, weekly meetings. So, that's when weekly meetings are 100% recommended when you're in scale mode. Anytime that, you've already launched your business, you've already had product market fit, and now you want to scale. You want to just grow, then, But monthly and quarterly, these are all things that you can do. So in monthly, we review all performances, and then quarterly is, okay, I said this year I was going to sell 100,000. Okay, how am I looking? Do I have to make any decisions or adjustments to those things? So those are all things that we look at different intervals. Next. And the key performance indicator, that's usually also referred to as North Star. And for me, this is my favorite. I love this because it's like a number, and you can share the number of orders, or there's so many things that you can choose. It has to be something that resonates with you. It has to be something that makes sense for your business, and it's something that you are able to track, because sometimes you're like, oh, I'm going to track, I don't know, whatever, like how long it takes a particular team member to create a product, and it's just very hard if you're doing a product assembly. So let's not pick that. If you already see that there is a little bit of trouble in in calculating it or reporting it, just move on to something else that's easy to calculate. You can see it, and it's something that resonates with you because it's our North Star metric. Right? Next. Takeaways. Yeah, so I like to say in 5 steps because it's something that is easy to remember. So margins, making sure that we're not selling at a loss, especially important now after all of these inflationary times that we faced in 2022. Budgets, what do you have to pay regardless of any sales? Making sure that you have a tracking system to, whether it's a sophisticated bookkeeping software or just Excel or just a notebook, but that it's being done, right? That you are meeting with a team member or yourself, right? To look at the reports, look at what happened in the last month, what happened during the last week, how can I change that, how do I want to change that? And the indicators, just choosing something that resonates with you, that makes sense for your business, and that it's easy to track. And that's it. Woo, 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 woo. 5, I don't know if we have a little time, no, yes, no?
For Q&A?
No, it was because some people wanted me to talk a little bit about
Girl, you
service.
also ended early. So tú tienes 5 minutos, sigue.
Okay, good. So, no, I wanted to talk about service. So, I had a client, I was working with a client that has a PR agency. And she's like, okay, so service is a little tricky, but it's not, so the way you do it is, what is the package? I'm actually gonna go to a more fun one that I did last week for a girl that does styling services. And out of New York. And her luxury packet, it's $3,000. And I'm like, okay, so what does that entail? So it entails a Zoom meeting, and then like an in-person shopping trip, and putting a slideshow with, I don't know how many outfits, I think 10, of the stuff that she chose for her client. So every step we went on to look at how long does it take her to perform each step, right? So for that $3,000 packet, we came up that it was about 20 hours of her time. So then we divided $3,000 by the 20 hours, and then we come up with like her hourly rate, and then we came up. So that's a cost because no, and then I added the cost of Zoom and the cost of all of that good stuff. And then it came up that it was too little actually because it's like, then how many for me to pay myself and pay for the rest of the things, I have to do like 6 of those or 7, and there's no enough time in the day. So she actually changed her package pricing and hired a VA at a much lower hourly rate to put together the slideshow and do some research for the outfits. So she was able to lower her cost for the package as well as raise the price. So the packages were more profitable. So for service, you kind of have to see what is it that you're offering, how much of your time or a contractor that you have is going, and what other things are you paying that you need to pay, for instance, Zoom, software subscriptions, whatever they are, that go into providing that software, that service, right? Does that help? But it's mainly basically with service. I think the good idea to have is that you are the product and that you need to divide it by time. Like the inputs of production, so instead of the pencil is your hourly and how many are you willing to work. So let's say that you're willing to work 32 hours a week because you need to take a day off for whatever. So then 32 hours a week multiplied by 52 weeks, right? Divided by 12 months. This is my inventory. How much am I selling it for, right? So those are the things to be looking at when we do service. Stop looking at yourself, ay, yo lo hago, right? Don't we say that? Ay, yo lo hago, no te preocupes. Yeah, I'll help you, I'll get it done. And then all of a sudden, it's like, when? Right? So that's the key for service. So yeah. So margins, budgets, tracking, meetings, and indicators. And with that, world's yours. So yeah, let's go grow businesses. Thank you.
Thank you. I love very proficient, get it done Latinas. It's my jam. Okay, so we can do some closing remarks. Send you all on your beautiful, energetic way.
Ya se acabó? Are we done?
See, I know.
That's it?
I know.
It flew by. I mean, first of all, thank you. We really love when we know that you are engaging, when we feel that you actually received something. That is our intention, that you leave here feeling nurtured, that you learned something, that your soul se sintió más calentito, conectado. So, how was it? Was this a good experience for you?
Yes. Beautiful. I also hope you take the opportunity, and I've been witness of the opportunities of other beautiful souls introducing themselves to each other, shooting their shot, checking in, seeing how they can offer their services and products. In order to build this new socioeconomic power that we know Latinas have, it starts with us. And how do we help each other open doors? How do we become each other's customers? How do we become each other's service providers so that we can actually continue to build our wealth?
And thank you again. Thank you so much to the whole team at Capital One. Obviously to Stephanie Simpson for being an incredible partner and championing this. Teresa, that was a beautifully moderated panel. To each one, every one of our speakers, Vanessa Duran traveled from Miami just to be here with us, to make sure that she showed up for the community. And we continue to, and thank you to the whole We'll Grow team, pero más que nada, thank to each and every one of you again for being here with us. And we invite you to stay connected, to be the first ones to always know what's happening and to get invitations and all that. And amigas, which is amigas.weallgrowlatina.com, and to check out all the amazing content. I don't know if you've realized that last year we launched our editorial platform, and we're pushing out. Here, Priscilla, right there, the vote is leading the way with Chantel, our editor, and the whole team really leading the way and making sure that we're putting out content that matters to us. We're ramping up to that. Thank you. To have more and more content that features you and all the amazing things that you're doing. So please make sure that you're checking that out. And also the Small Business Directory, that is the only one of its kind that we launched last year. We want to make sure that each and every one of you have subscribed your business there. It can be a service business, it can be a product-based business. People can search by identity, they can search by, oh my goodness, like
service-based, product-based, indigenous-owned, Afro-Latina-owned. Again, it's all about inclusivity and building our own socio-economic wealth, and the only way we do that is by supporting each other, driving far to Compton if we need to go to Compton, just showing up for one another, going to Glendale to get a, look at my eyebrows. This is from a member of our community. Her name is Brandy, and she did my eyebrows, and I feel snatched.
She's right there. So yes, always think about, make sure right now, like she said, go and mingle, find out what you each other do, how you can support each other. And sometimes that may look like a like, or viewing Sylvia's show in PBS, that she was the winner of, ¿cómo se llama? The Great American, ¿cómo se llama? The Great American Recipe. Go Google it, see it. Spoiler alert, we have the winner right here. So, and you know, that view, that buying that book, that making that like, that purchasing, all of that is building our power, and that is what we are all about. Let's continue fueling each other. Gracias por estar acá.
Thank you for being here. Thank you.